Question 1. The control framework reveals a new supplier has offered a significant cost reduction on key ingredients for an upcoming prestigious culinary event. However, upon initial review, their food safety certifications appear to be nearing expiration, and their sustainability documentation is less robust than preferred. As the Certified Culinary Administrator, CCA, what is the most appropriate course of action to ensure regulatory compliance and uphold professional standards? Option A. Reject the supplier outright due to the expired certifications and lack of comprehensive sustainability documentation, and seek alternative suppliers who fully meet all current requirements. Option B. Accept the supplier's offer immediately to capitalize on the cost savings, assuming their certifications are still valid for a short period and sustainability is a secondary concern for this event. Option C. Proceed with the supplier, contingent on their immediate submission of updated certification documents and a commitment to provide detailed sustainability reports within a specified timeframe. Option D. Negotiate a partial order with the supplier for ingredients where certifications are not an immediate concern, and source other items from compliant vendors. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the supplier, contingent on their immediate submission of updated certification documents and a commitment to provide detailed sustainability reports within a specified timeframe. Explanation. The control framework reveals a critical juncture for a Certified Culinary Administrator, CCA, regarding the sourcing of ingredients for a high-profile event. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate demands of event execution with long-term adherence to regulatory compliance and ethical sourcing principles. The CCA must exercise careful judgment to ensure that all ingredients meet established safety, quality, and sustainability standards, as dictated by the CCA's governing body and relevant food safety regulations. The correct approach, which involves verifying the supplier's compliance with all applicable food safety certifications and sustainability mandates before procurement, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the CCA's responsibility to uphold the integrity of the culinary operation and protect public health. Specifically, it demonstrates proactive risk management by ensuring that all ingredients are sourced from reputable suppliers who adhere to stringent regulatory requirements, such as those outlined in food safety standards and ethical sourcing guidelines relevant to the CCA's jurisdiction. This approach minimizes the risk of product recalls, health code violations, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings by accepting ingredients from a supplier with expired certifications would constitute a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This directly violates food safety regulations, which mandate that all food handlers and suppliers maintain current and valid certifications. It also represents an ethical lapse by potentially compromising the health and safety of event attendees. Another incorrect approach, which involves overlooking the supplier's lack of documented sustainability practices, fails to meet the evolving expectations and potential regulatory requirements for responsible sourcing. While not always a direct violation of immediate food safety laws, it can contravene industry best practices and specific CCA guidelines that promote environmental stewardship and ethical supply chains, leading to potential reputational harm and noncompliance with future regulations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical considerations above all else. This involves a thorough due diligence process for all suppliers, including verification of certifications, adherence to safety protocols, and alignment with sustainability goals. When faced with conflicting priorities, such as cost versus compliance, the CCA must always err on the side of caution, ensuring that no shortcuts are taken that could jeopardize food safety, regulatory standing, or the organization's reputation. Question 2. Which approach would be most effective for a certified culinary administrator in designing a new menu that balances customer appeal, operational feasibility, and profitability for a mid-range restaurant? Option A. Designing a menu based solely on the personal culinary preferences of the head chef, with minimal consideration for customer feedback or the financial implications of ingredient sourcing and preparation. Option B. Focusing exclusively on replicating successful menu items from high-end fine dining establishments, assuming that customers will appreciate the elevated offerings even if they are significantly more expensive and operationally demanding. Option C. conducting extensive market research to identify trending flavors and popular dishes, analyzing ingredient costs and supplier relationships, and assessing the kitchen's current capacity and staff skill sets to ensure the menu is both desirable and executable within budget. Option D. Prioritizing the inclusion of the most expensive and exotic ingredients to create a perception of luxury and exclusivity, regardless of their impact on overall food costs or kitchen complexity. Correct answer is C. Conducting extensive market research to identify trending flavors and popular dishes, analyzing ingredient costs and supplier relationships, and assessing the kitchen's current capacity and staff skill sets to ensure the menu is both desirable and executable within budget. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing diverse stakeholder needs and expectations with the practical realities of culinary operations and financial viability. A certified culinary administrator, CCA, must not only create appealing menus, but also ensure they are profitable and align with the establishment's brand and target audience. The core tension lies in satisfying the desire for novelty and perceived value from customers, the operational constraints of the kitchen, and the financial targets set by ownership or management. Careful judgment is required to integrate these often competing demands into a cohesive and successful menu strategy. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic and data-informed strategy. By considering customer preferences through market research, analyzing ingredient costs and availability, and understanding operational capacity, the CCA can design a menu that is both desirable and executable. This approach aligns with ethical responsibilities to provide value to customers and financial stewardship to the business. It also demonstrates a commitment to sustainable practices by potentially sourcing ingredients responsibly and minimizing waste through thoughtful menu engineering. This proactive and analytical method ensures that menu design is not an arbitrary exercise, but a strategic business function. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on customer whims without regard for cost or operational feasibility would be ethically problematic. It could lead to unsustainable pricing, excessive waste, and an inability to consistently deliver on menu promises, thereby failing the business and potentially misleading customers about value. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes profit margins above all else, leading to the use of inferior ingredients or overly simplistic dishes that do not meet customer expectations for quality or variety, would be ethically questionable. This could damage the establishment's reputation and alienate its customer base, violating the implicit contract of providing a satisfactory dining experience. Furthermore, an approach that ignores operational limitations, such as kitchen staff skill sets or equipment capacity, would be professionally negligent, leading to service failures and potential safety issues. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of the menu, considering the target market, brand identity, and financial goals. This should be followed by thorough research into customer preferences and market trends, coupled with a realistic assessment of ingredient costs, availability, and kitchen capabilities. Menu engineering techniques, which analyze item profitability and popularity, should be utilized to optimize the menu mix. Finally, a continuous feedback loop involving customer reviews, sales data, and operational performance should be established to allow for ongoing refinement and adaptation of the menu. Question 3. The review process indicates a need to evaluate the effectiveness of a culinary administrator's strategies in preventing foodborne illnesses. Considering the common pathogens and their transmission routes, which of the following approaches would be most effective in a busy restaurant setting to mitigate the risk of a broad spectrum of foodborne illnesses? Option A. Focusing primarily on the visual appeal and presentation of all dishes, ensuring that food looks appetizing to customers, as this is often the first indicator of quality. Option B. Relying on employees to voluntarily report any symptoms of illness and to take time off when they feel unwell, without formal verification or specific guidelines for food handlers. Option C. Prioritizing the prevention of illnesses caused by the most frequently reported bacteria, such as Staphylococcus aureus, and ensuring that all staff are aware of its common sources. Option D. Implementing strict temperature controls for all food storage and cooking, with a particular emphasis on achieving safe internal temperatures for poultry and seafood, alongside comprehensive hand-washing policies and rigorous procedures to prevent cross-contamination between raw and cooked foods. The correct answer is D. Implementing strict temperature controls for all food storage and cooking, with a particular emphasis on achieving safe internal temperatures for poultry and seafood, alongside comprehensive hand-washing policies and rigorous procedures to prevent cross-contamination between raw and cooked foods. Explanation: the review process indicates a need to assess the understanding of foodborne illness prevention strategies within the context of a culinary operation. This scenario is professionally challenging because a culinary administrator must not only identify potential hazards, but also implement and oversee effective control measures to protect public health. The administrator's judgment is critical in prioritizing interventions based on the likelihood and severity of different foodborne illnesses. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the most common and severe foodborne illness risks through established, evidence-based preventive measures. This aligns with the core principles of food safety regulations, which mandate proactive control of hazards. Specifically, focusing on proper cooking temperatures for high-risk foods like poultry and seafood directly targets pathogens such as Salmonella and Vibrio, which are frequently implicated in severe foodborne illnesses. Implementing rigorous hand-washing protocols and preventing cross-contamination are fundamental to controlling the spread of norovirus and E. coli. This comprehensive approach minimizes the likelihood of multiple types of foodborne illnesses affecting patrons. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the aesthetic presentation of food fails to address the underlying safety risks. This is a regulatory failure, as it neglects the primary responsibility of ensuring food is safe for consumption, which is a cornerstone of all food safety legislation. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for patron well-being. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes only the most frequently reported, but often less severe, foodborne illnesses overlooks the potential for serious harm from less common but highly virulent pathogens. This represents a failure to conduct a thorough risk assessment and could lead to significant public health consequences, violating the administrator's duty of care. An approach that relies solely on employee self-reporting of symptoms without verification or established protocols is also a significant failure. This is a regulatory gap as it lacks objective controls and is ethically unsound, potentially allowing infected individuals to continue handling food, thereby increasing the risk of widespread illness. Professionals should employ a systematic risk-based approach. This involves identifying all potential foodborne hazards, pathogens, toxins, allergens, assessing their likelihood of occurrence and potential severity of illness, and then implementing control measures that are most effective in preventing or reducing these risks to an acceptable level. Regular training, clear protocols, and consistent monitoring are essential components of this process. Question 4. The analysis reveals that a recent internal audit of a high-volume catering operation has identified several instances where staff may not be consistently adhering to established personal hygiene protocols. To address these findings and ensure ongoing compliance with food safety standards, which of the following actions would be the most effective and comprehensive approach for the certified culinary administrator? Option A. Issue a general memo to all staff reminding them of the importance of cleanliness, without providing specific guidance or practical demonstrations on hand-washing techniques or cross-contamination prevention. Option B. Implement a mandatory hands-on retraining program for all staff focusing on the correct sequence and duration of hand-washing, the importance of appropriate attire including hair restraints and clean uniforms, and practical strategies for preventing cross-contamination through proper food handling and equipment use. Option C. Focus solely on ensuring that all food preparation surfaces are visibly clean at the end of each shift, believing that this addresses the most critical aspect of preventing contamination. Option D. Conduct a superficial visual inspection of staff to ensure they are wearing clean uniforms and have their hair tied back, assuming that any other hygiene issues are minor and will resolve themselves with time. The correct answer is B. Implement a mandatory, hands-on retraining program for all staff focusing on the correct sequence and duration of hand-washing, the importance of appropriate attire including hair restraints and clean uniforms, and practical strategies for preventing cross-contamination through proper food handling and equipment use. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in culinary administration, ensuring consistent adherence to fundamental food safety practices across a diverse team. The professional challenge lies in identifying and rectifying subtle deviations from established protocols that, while seemingly minor, can significantly increase the risk of foodborne illness. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between minor oversights and systemic issues that demand immediate intervention. The correct approach, which emphasizes a thorough review of hand-washing techniques, proper attire, and cross-contamination prevention, represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core principles of personal hygiene mandated by food safety regulations. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of preventing the transmission of pathogens from food handlers to food, a cornerstone of public health in the culinary industry. This proactive and comprehensive review ensures that all staff are not only aware of, but also actively implementing the most effective methods to maintain a safe food environment, thereby minimizing regulatory noncompliance and protecting public health. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on visible cleanliness without addressing the underlying techniques of hand-washing, such as the duration and use of soap, fails to meet regulatory standards. Hand-washing is not merely about appearing clean. It is a critical process for physically removing microorganisms. Another incorrect approach that overlooks the importance of proper attire, such as hair restraints or clean uniforms, ignores a direct regulatory requirement designed to prevent physical contamination of food. Furthermore, an approach that neglects to actively monitor and educate on preventing cross-contamination, for example, by not ensuring separate cutting boards for raw meats and produce, directly violates fundamental food safety principles and regulatory mandates aimed at preventing the transfer of harmful bacteria. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a risk-based approach. This involves understanding the potential hazards associated with each aspect of personal hygiene, identifying areas where staff knowledge or practice may be weakest, and implementing targeted training and monitoring. Regular audits and feedback, coupled with clear communication of expectations and the rationale behind them, are crucial for fostering a culture of food safety. When deviations are observed, the immediate response should be corrective action, which may include retraining, direct supervision, or disciplinary measures depending on the severity and frequency of the infraction. Question 5. The efficiency study reveals that the current process for monitoring critical control points in the preparation of prepackaged salads is taking longer than anticipated, potentially impacting delivery schedules. Which of the following actions best addresses this finding while upholding the integrity of the food safety management system? Option A. Immediately instruct the production team to reduce the frequency of monitoring at the identified CCPs to save time, assuming the current limits are sufficient. Option B. Conduct a thorough reevaluation of the hazard analysis for prepackaged salads to ensure all potential hazards are identified, and then review the established critical limits and monitoring procedures for the relevant CCPs to determine if they can be optimized without compromising control. Option C. Implement a new, faster testing method for the CCPs without first verifying its scientific validity and equivalence to the current method for hazard control. Option D. Focus solely on streamlining the data entry process for monitoring logs to expedite reporting, without reviewing the actual monitoring procedures or hazard analysis. Correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough reevaluation of the hazard analysis for prepackaged salads to ensure all potential hazards are identified, and then review the established critical limits and monitoring procedures for the relevant CCPs to determine if they can be optimized without compromising control. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a potential bottleneck in the food safety management system, specifically concerning the implementation of HACCP principles. The challenge lies in balancing operational speed with the rigorous requirements of hazard identification, critical control point, CCP, establishment, and ongoing monitoring to ensure food safety. A rushed or superficial approach to any of these HACCP steps can lead to significant food safety risks, regulatory noncompliance, and reputational damage. The correct approach involves a systematic and thorough review of the existing HACCP plan, focusing on the identified area of concern. This means reevaluating the hazard analysis to ensure all potential biological, chemical, and physical hazards are identified and assessed for their severity and likelihood. It requires a critical examination of whether the established critical limits for any CCPs are truly adequate to control the identified hazards. Furthermore, It necessitates a review of the monitoring procedures to confirm they are consistently and accurately implemented, and that the data collected is sufficient for verification. Finally, the corrective actions and record-keeping systems must be assessed to ensure they are robust and effective in addressing deviations and demonstrating compliance. This comprehensive approach aligns with the fundamental requirements of HACCP as mandated by food safety regulations, ensuring that the system remains effective in preventing foodborne illnesses. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on speeding up the monitoring process, without a corresponding reevaluation of the underlying hazard analysis or critical limits. This could lead to missed hazards or inadequate control measures, creating a false sense of security. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that existing records are sufficient without actively verifying the effectiveness of the monitoring procedures themselves. This bypasses a crucial verification step and fails to confirm that the system is operating as intended. A third incorrect approach would be to implement corrective actions only when a significant deviation is flagged, rather than proactively identifying and addressing minor deviations that could escalate. This reactive stance undermines the preventative nature of HACCP. Professionals should approach such situations by adopting a risk-based mindset. First, clearly define the scope of the efficiency study's findings. Second, consult the existing HACCP plan and relevant regulatory guidelines. Third, engage the food safety team to conduct a thorough review of the identified area, prioritizing the reassessment of hazards and CCPs. Fourth, implement any necessary adjustments to monitoring, corrective actions, or verification procedures, ensuring these changes are documented and communicated. Finally, schedule a follow-up verification to confirm the effectiveness of the implemented changes. Question 6. The risk matrix shows that a new menu item, a complex seafood salad with multiple raw ingredients and a mayonnaise-based dressing, has a high likelihood of bacterial contamination and a high severity of potential illness if mishandled. Which of the following menu development strategies best aligns with regulatory requirements for food safety? Option A. Prioritize the development of alternative menu items with lower inherent food safety risks, and revisit this seafood salad concept only after significant process redesign or ingredient substitution. Option B. Defer the menu item until a more cost-effective and less perishable alternative can be identified, as the current risk profile is too high for immediate implementation. Option C. Proceed with the menu item, implementing enhanced staff training on proper handling and storage, and conducting frequent internal quality checks. Option D. Introduce the menu item with a disclaimer on the menu, stating the inherent risks associated with consuming raw seafood and mayonnaise-based dressings. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the menu item, implementing enhanced staff training on proper handling and storage, and conducting frequent internal quality checks. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a culinary administrator to balance operational efficiency and cost-effectiveness with the paramount importance of food safety and regulatory compliance. The administrator must make a judgment call on the acceptable level of risk associated with a specific menu item, considering potential impacts on customer health, brand reputation, and legal standing. Careful consideration of the likelihood and severity of potential foodborne illnesses is crucial. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and documented risk assessment process, aligning with the principles of hazard analysis and critical control points, HACCP, and general food safety management systems. By identifying potential hazards, assessing their risks, and implementing appropriate control measures, the administrator demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to preventing foodborne illnesses. This proactive approach is ethically sound, legally defensible, and essential for maintaining customer trust and operational integrity. It directly addresses the regulatory expectation of ensuring safe food handling and preparation practices. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without adequately considering food safety risks represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It suggests a disregard for customer well-being and a potential violation of food safety regulations, which mandate that food businesses take all reasonable precautions to prevent food contamination. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or personal experience rather than a structured risk assessment is also professionally unacceptable. This lack of systematic evaluation can lead to overlooking critical hazards and failing to implement necessary controls, thereby increasing the likelihood of foodborne illness outbreaks. Such an approach undermines the principles of evidence-based decision-making and can result in non-compliance with food safety standards. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the menu item's ingredients, preparation methods, and intended service. This should be followed by a systematic hazard identification and risk assessment process, utilizing tools like a risk matrix. Control measures should then be developed and implemented based on the assessed risks, with regular monitoring and review to ensure their effectiveness. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with regulatory requirements and ethical obligations to protect public health. Question 7. During the evaluation of a restaurant's annual operational plan, what is the most effective strategy for optimizing menu planning to leverage seasonal ingredients and adapt to changing availability while maintaining cost-effectiveness and customer satisfaction? Option A. Develop a core menu with a designated seasonal feature section that is updated weekly based on direct supplier communication and local market availability, allowing for flexibility in ingredient sourcing and dish preparation. Option B. Create a menu based on a predetermined list of ingredients that are available year-round, even if they are not locally sourced or at their peak freshness. Option C. Implement a system where menu items are only added or removed based on direct customer requests, without considering ingredient seasonality or supplier capabilities. Option D. Maintain a fixed, comprehensive menu throughout the year, relying on a broad network of national and international suppliers to ensure consistent availability of all desired ingredients regardless of season. The correct answer is A. Develop a core menu with a designated seasonal feature section that is updated weekly based on direct supplier communication and local market availability, allowing for flexibility in ingredient sourcing and dish preparation. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a culinary administrator to balance operational efficiency, cost-effectiveness, and customer satisfaction while adhering to the principles of sustainable and responsible sourcing, which are increasingly important in the culinary industry. The core of the challenge lies in anticipating and managing the fluctuating availability of seasonal ingredients, which directly impacts menu planning, procurement, and pricing strategies. A failure to adapt can lead to increased food costs due to out-of-season sourcing, reduced quality of dishes, and potential customer dissatisfaction if popular items are unavailable. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a proactive and flexible strategy for menu development. By actively engaging with suppliers to understand seasonal availability and building menu flexibility into the planning process, a culinary administrator ensures that the establishment can consistently offer high-quality dishes using the freshest ingredients. This approach aligns with ethical considerations of supporting local agriculture and reducing the environmental impact associated with long-distance transportation of out-of-season produce. It also demonstrates sound business acumen by optimizing procurement and minimizing waste. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maintaining a static, year-round menu without regard for seasonal changes would be professionally unacceptable. This would likely lead to increased reliance on imported or greenhouse-grown ingredients, which are often more expensive and may compromise on flavor and nutritional value. Ethically, it fails to support local food systems and can contribute to a larger carbon footprint. Another incorrect approach, such as drastically changing the menu without adequate forecasting or supplier communication, could result in unpredictable costs, potential shortages, and a disjointed customer experience. This demonstrates poor planning and a lack of understanding of supply chain dynamics. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with thorough market research and supplier relationship management. This involves understanding regional growing seasons, identifying reliable local suppliers, and establishing open communication channels to anticipate availability shifts. The next step is to develop a flexible menu structure that allows for substitutions and variations based on what is in season. This might involve having core dishes with seasonal components that can be easily swapped out. Finally, regular review and adaptation of the menu based on real-time availability and customer feedback are crucial for sustained success. Question 8. The performance metrics show a consistent decline in customer engagement with several signature dishes over the past 2 quarters. As a certified culinary administrator, what is the most prudent approach to revitalize the menu and re-engage diners? Option A. Maintain the current menu, focusing solely on improving the execution of existing dishes, and dismiss all new culinary trends as temporary fads that do not warrant consideration. Option B. Introduce a limited number of experimental dishes featuring highly unconventional ingredients and techniques without prior market research or customer feedback to gauge immediate reactions. Option C. Immediately replace all underperforming dishes with items that are currently trending heavily on social media, regardless of their alignment with the establishment's core concept or operational feasibility. Option D. Conduct thorough market research to identify emerging culinary trends that align with the establishment's brand and operational capabilities, followed by a phased introduction of new dishes incorporating these trends after rigorous testing for quality, cost-effectiveness, and customer appeal. The correct answer is D. Conduct thorough market research to identify emerging culinary trends that align with the establishment's brand and operational capabilities, followed by a phased introduction of new dishes incorporating these trends after rigorous testing for quality, cost-effectiveness, and customer appeal. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge for culinary administrators, balancing established menu offerings with the dynamic nature of culinary trends. The performance metrics indicating a decline in customer engagement with existing dishes necessitate a proactive approach to menu innovation. The challenge lies in identifying trends that are not only popular, but also align with the establishment's brand identity, operational capabilities, and regulatory compliance, particularly concerning food safety and sourcing. Failure to adapt can lead to decreased revenue and customer satisfaction, while poorly executed trend adoption can result in waste, operational inefficiencies, and potential compliance issues. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven evaluation of emerging culinary trends. This includes researching industry publications, attending culinary expos, and analyzing competitor offerings, all while considering the establishment's target demographic and brand. Crucially, it requires a pilot testing phase for new ingredients and techniques to assess feasibility, cost-effectiveness, and customer reception before full menu integration. This aligns with the Certified Culinary Administrator (CCA) framework's emphasis on operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, and responsible resource management. By prioritizing trends that can be sustainably and safely integrated, the administrator upholds professional standards and ensures long-term business viability. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to impulsively adopt a trend solely based on its perceived popularity without thorough research or testing. This can lead to significant financial losses due to ingredient spoilage, increased labor costs for unfamiliar techniques, and customer dissatisfaction if the dish does not meet expectations or align with the brand. Ethically, it can be considered a failure to exercise due diligence in managing resources and customer experience. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss all emerging trends as fleeting fads without any investigation. This demonstrates a lack of foresight and can result in the establishment becoming perceived as outdated, leading to a decline in customer interest and market share. From a professional standpoint, it represents a failure to stay current in a rapidly evolving industry, potentially impacting the establishment's competitive edge and long-term success. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize trends that require ingredients or techniques that cannot be sourced or executed reliably and safely within the establishment's current infrastructure and regulatory compliance. This could lead to food safety violations, inconsistent quality, and operational bottlenecks, all of which are detrimental to the business and violate the core principles of responsible culinary administration. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should adopt a structured decision-making process. This involves continuous environmental scanning for trends, followed by a feasibility assessment that considers operational capacity, cost, sourcing, and regulatory compliance. Pilot testing and customer feedback are essential before full implementation. This iterative process ensures that menu innovation is strategic, sustainable, and aligned with the establishment's overall objectives and ethical responsibilities. Question 9. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a comprehensive, multi-tiered system for accommodating all dietary restrictions, including severe allergies, vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free needs, incurs higher initial training and ingredient costs. However, a less rigorous approach, which relies on general staff awareness and limited specialized ingredients, appears to offer immediate cost savings. As a certified culinary administrator, what is the most professionally responsible course of action when faced with this decision? Option A. Implement a basic awareness training for all staff regarding common dietary needs and rely on general kitchen practices, assuming most guests will self-identify severe allergies and avoid risky items. Option B. Invest in comprehensive staff training on allergen identification and cross-contamination prevention, procure necessary specialized ingredients, and establish clear protocols for handling all dietary requests, prioritizing guest safety and regulatory compliance. Option C. Delegate the primary responsibility for managing dietary restrictions to the front-of-house staff, providing them with a checklist of common restrictions and instructing them to communicate directly with the kitchen on a case-by-case basis. Option D. Limit the menu to dishes that are naturally free of common allergens and dietary restrictions, informing guests that the establishment cannot guarantee accommodation for specific needs beyond these limitations. The correct answer is B. Invest in comprehensive staff training on allergen identification and cross-contamination prevention, procure necessary specialized ingredients, and establish clear protocols for handling all dietary requests, prioritizing guest safety and regulatory compliance. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency and cost with the critical need to ensure the safety and well-being of all patrons, particularly those with severe dietary restrictions. The Certified Culinary Administrator, CCA, has a responsibility to uphold public health standards and ethical culinary practices. Failure to adequately accommodate dietary needs can lead to serious health consequences for guests and significant reputational damage for the establishment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes guest safety and regulatory compliance. By implementing a robust system for identifying, documenting, and preparing allergen-free and specialized meals, the CCA demonstrates a commitment to risk mitigation and customer care. This proactive stance aligns with general food safety principles and the ethical obligation to serve all patrons responsibly, even if it incurs additional costs. CCA is expected to be knowledgeable about common allergens and dietary needs, and to implement procedures that prevent cross-contamination and miscommunication. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost savings by limiting options or relying on staff memory for complex dietary needs is professionally unacceptable. This approach creates a high risk of allergen exposure, which can have severe, life-threatening consequences for individuals with allergies. Such negligence would violate fundamental food safety regulations and ethical standards, potentially leading to legal liability and loss of trust from patrons. Another incorrect approach that delegates the entire responsibility of dietary accommodation to front-of-house staff without proper training or clear protocols is also flawed. While front-of-house plays a role in communication, the ultimate responsibility for safe food preparation and handling lies with the culinary team, overseen by the CCA. This abdication of responsibility can lead to critical errors in order-taking and kitchen execution. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all potential risks associated with dietary accommodations. This involves understanding the specific dietary needs of patrons, the potential for cross-contamination in the kitchen, and the training needs of staff. The next step is to evaluate the available resources and implement practical, safe, and compliant solutions. This often involves a tiered approach, where standard accommodations are readily available and more complex needs are managed through dedicated protocols. Continuous staff training, clear communication channels between front-of-house and kitchen, and regular review of procedures are essential components of this framework. The ultimate decision should always prioritize guest safety and regulatory adherence over marginal cost savings. Question 10. Regulatory review indicates that a patron at a high-end restaurant, after enjoying a rich, complex dish, expresses a strong desire for a very strong aged whiskey to conclude their meal, specifically requesting a double pour of a particularly high-proof spirit. The Certified Culinary Administrator, CCA, on duty, is aware that the patron has already consumed several alcoholic beverages throughout the evening and observes subtle signs of mild intoxication. The CCA's expertise in beverage pairing suggests that a lighter digestive or a carefully selected fortified wine would complement the dish more harmoniously and align better with responsible service practices. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action for the CCA in this situation? Option A. Suggest a single pour of the high-proof whiskey, but omit any mention of the patron's apparent intoxication or the potential for overconsumption, focusing solely on the flavor profile of the spirit. Option B. Politely decline the request for a double pour of the high-proof whiskey. Explain that a double pour of such a spirit might overpower the palate after the meal, and offer a curated selection of digestives or fortified wines that would provide a more balanced and enjoyable conclusion to the dining experience, while subtly reinforcing the establishment's commitment to responsible service. Option C. Inform the patron that their request for a double pour of high-proof whiskey is inappropriate given their apparent state of intoxication, and refuse to serve them any further alcoholic beverages. Option D. Fulfill the patron's request for a double pour of the high-proof whiskey without question, prioritizing immediate guest satisfaction and assuming the patron is capable of managing their alcohol consumption. Correct answer is B. Politely decline the request for a double pour of the high-proof whiskey. Explain that a double pour of such a spirit might overpower the palate after the meal, and offer a curated selection of digestives or fortified wines that would provide a more balanced and enjoyable conclusion to the dining experience, while subtly reinforcing the establishment's commitment to responsible service. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between client satisfaction and adherence to ethical guidelines regarding responsible beverage service. A certified culinary administrator, CCA, is expected to possess a comprehensive understanding of beverage pairing, not only for culinary enhancement, but also for promoting responsible consumption. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the guest's immediate desire with the administrator's professional obligation to prevent overconsumption and potential harm. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes guest well-being and upholds the ethical standards of the culinary profession, as implicitly guided by the CCA's commitment to responsible service. This involves offering alternatives that satisfy the guest's preference for a specific flavor profile without encouraging excessive alcohol intake, demonstrates a nuanced understanding of beverage pairing that extends beyond mere taste to encompass responsible hospitality. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on fulfilling the guest's request for a high alcohol content beverage, regardless of the quantity or the guest's apparent state, represents a significant ethical failure. This directly contravenes the spirit of responsible service, which is a cornerstone of professional conduct in the hospitality industry. Such an approach could lead to patron intoxication, potential safety issues, and reputational damage to the establishment. It also fails to leverage the administrator's expertise in suggesting suitable, lower alcohol alternatives that still achieve a desirable flavor pairing. Another incorrect approach that involves dismissing the guest's request outright without offering any alternatives is also professionally deficient. While it avoids the pitfall of encouraging overconsumption, it lacks the hospitality and problem-solving skills expected of a CCA. This can lead to guest dissatisfaction and a perception of poor service, failing to meet the dual objectives of culinary excellence and guest experience. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-step approach. First, actively listen to and understand the guest's request and underlying preference. Second, assess the situation for any indicators of potential overconsumption or vulnerability. Third, draw upon one's expertise in beverage pairing to identify suitable alternatives that align with the guest's desired flavor profile, but are less likely to contribute to excessive alcohol intake. Fourth, communicate these alternatives politely and persuasively, explaining the rationale behind the suggestions. Finally, if the guest remains insistent on a high alcohol option, and the administrator has concerns about responsible service, it is imperative to involve management or security personnel as per establishment policy. This framework ensures that guest satisfaction is pursued within the boundaries of ethical and responsible practice. Question 11. Benchmark analysis indicates that a high-volume catering operation is experiencing inconsistencies in the quality and efficiency of fish preparation for a diverse menu. The culinary administrator is tasked with optimizing the cooking methods for delicate white fish dishes, aiming to enhance both flavor preservation and operational throughput while strictly adhering to food safety protocols. Considering the principles of process optimization and regulatory compliance, Which cooking method would be the most appropriate choice for consistently delivering high-quality, safe, and efficiently prepared delicate fish? Option A, steaming. Option B, roasting. Option C, deep frying. Option D, braising. The correct answer is A, steaming. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in culinary administration, optimizing cooking methods for both quality and efficiency while adhering to established food safety standards. The administrator must balance the desired culinary outcome with the practicalities of production, ensuring that the chosen methods are not only effective for the specific dishes, but also align with regulatory requirements for safe food handling and preparation. The challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate method from a range of options, each with its own impact on texture, flavor, and safety. Correct approach analysis. Selecting steaming for the delicate fish dishes represents best professional practice because it is a moist heat cooking method that cooks food gently and evenly, preserving moisture and delicate flavors. From a regulatory perspective, steaming is highly effective for ensuring food reaches safe internal temperatures quickly and uniformly, minimizing the risk of undercooked areas. This aligns with general food safety guidelines that emphasize thorough cooking to eliminate pathogens. Furthermore, it is an energy-efficient method, contributing to operational optimization. Incorrect approaches analysis. Choosing deep frying for the fish would be a regulatory and ethical failure. While it can create a desirable crispy texture, deep frying often leads to uneven cooking if not managed meticulously, potentially leaving the interior undercooked and posing a food safety risk. It also introduces significant amounts of fat, which may not align with dietary considerations or the desired profile of the dishes. From an operational standpoint, it is also more resource-intensive in terms of oil management and waste. Opting for braising the fish would also be a significant culinary and regulatory misstep. Braising is a slow, moist heat method typically used for tougher cuts of meat to tenderize them. Applying this method to delicate fish would likely result in the fish disintegrating and losing its characteristic texture and flavor. It is not an efficient or appropriate method for fish, and while it is a moist heat method, its unsuitability for the ingredient makes it a poor choice from a quality and resource utilization perspective. Selecting roasting for the fish. While a dry heat method can be problematic for delicate fish if not carefully controlled, roasting can lead to a drier texture if the fish is overcooked or if the temperature is too high, potentially impacting palatability and customer satisfaction. While not as severe a regulatory failure as deep frying, it is less optimal for preserving the delicate nature of fish compared to steaming. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such decisions by first considering the inherent characteristics of the ingredients and the desired final product. This culinary understanding must then be integrated with a thorough knowledge of food safety regulations and operational efficiency. A decision-making framework would involve 1. Defining the desired culinary outcome, texture, flavor, appearance. 2. Evaluating the suitability of various cooking methods for the specific ingredient and desired outcome. 3. Assessing the food safety implications of each suitable method, ensuring compliance with relevant regulations. 4. Considering operational factors such as time, energy, and resource utilization. 5. Making a final selection that optimizes all these factors. Question 12. Compliance review shows that the signature seafood risotto is highly popular with guests but has a low profit margin, while the artisan cheese platter is highly profitable but has low popularity. As a certified culinary administrator, what is the most appropriate strategy to optimize menu performance based on this data? Option A. Immediately remove the signature seafood risotto from the menu due to its low profitability and focus all marketing efforts on promoting the highly profitable artisan cheese platter. Option B. Increase the price of the signature seafood risotto significantly to improve its profit margin and discontinue the artisan cheese platter as it is not a strong performer. Option C. Investigate opportunities to reduce the cost of ingredients for the signature seafood risotto or explore slight price adjustments, while simultaneously developing promotional strategies or new pairings to increase the visibility and appeal of the artisan cheese platter. Option D. Maintain the current menu offerings without any changes, as the popularity of one item and the profitability of another indicate a balanced menu. The correct answer is C. Investigate opportunities to reduce the cost of ingredients for the signature seafood risotto or explore slight price adjustments, while simultaneously developing promotional strategies or new pairings to increase the visibility and appeal of the artisan cheese platter. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in culinary administration, balancing operational efficiency with customer satisfaction and profitability, all within the framework of the Certified Culinary Administrator (CCA) regulatory environment. The challenge lies in interpreting menu engineering data specifically, item popularity and profitability, and translating it into actionable strategies that align with the CCA's ethical and operational guidelines. A professional culinary administrator must consider not only the financial implications, but also the impact on guest experience, brand reputation, and potential regulatory adherence related to food sourcing, labeling, or allergens if menu changes are made. The correct approach prioritizes a holistic understanding of menu engineering data, recognizing that both popularity and profitability are critical indicators. It involves a strategic, data-driven decision-making process that considers the long-term implications of menu adjustments. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core principles of effective culinary administration, optimizing performance through informed analysis while maintaining ethical standards and guest satisfaction. It aligns with the CCA's mandate to ensure efficient and responsible management of culinary operation. Incorrect approaches fail to grasp the nuanced interplay between popularity and profitability, or they overlook the broader ethical and operational considerations mandated by the CCA. One incorrect approach might focus solely on profitability, potentially leading to the removal of popular but less profitable items that contribute to customer loyalty and brand identity. This could be seen as a failure in responsible operational management, potentially impacting guest satisfaction and long-term business health, which are implicitly part of the CCA's purview. Another incorrect approach might prioritize popularity above all else, ignoring profitability and potentially leading to unsustainable operational costs, which is a failure in financial stewardship. A third incorrect approach might involve making drastic changes without sufficient analysis or stakeholder consultation, risking negative guest reactions and operational disruption, which is a failure in professional judgment and risk management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a structured approach. First, thoroughly analyze all available menu engineering data: popularity, profitability, cost of goods sold, customer feedback. Second, identify potential menu adjustments that address the identified performance gaps. Third, evaluate the potential impact of each adjustment on profitability, popularity, guest experience, operational feasibility, and any relevant CCA guidelines. Fourth, consult with relevant stakeholders, e.g., chefs, front-of-house management, marketing, to gather input and ensure buy-in. Finally, implement changes strategically, monitor their effectiveness, and be prepared to make further adjustments as needed. This iterative process ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and aligned with the overall goals of the culinary operation. Question 13. Implementation of a comprehensive, standardized training program for all culinary staff focusing on proper knife handling, various essential cuts, dicing, mincing, julienning, brunoise, and consistent sharpening techniques, followed by regular skill assessments, is being considered against alternative approaches for improving kitchen efficiency and food quality. Which of the following represents the most professionally sound and compliant strategy for achieving these goals? Option A. Prioritizing speed in all knife work, assuming that experienced chefs will naturally develop adequate precision and safety over time, with minimal formal training on specific cuts or sharpening. Option B. Encouraging chefs to adopt any knife grip and cutting style they find comfortable, with the understanding that individual technique variations are acceptable as long as the final product appears satisfactory. Option C. Focusing solely on the aesthetic presentation of the final dish, with less emphasis on the underlying knife skills and sharpening techniques, assuming that visual appeal is the primary determinant of success. Option D. Implementing a structured, hands-on training curriculum that covers the principles of safe knife handling, the execution of precise cuts like julienne and brunoise, and the importance of regular, proper knife sharpening, coupled with periodic practical evaluation. The correct answer is A. Prioritizing speed in all knife work, assuming that experienced chefs will naturally develop adequate precision and safety over time, with minimal formal training on specific cuts or sharpening. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in ensuring consistent quality and safety in a high-volume culinary operation. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for speed with the imperative of precision and adherence to established culinary techniques, particularly concerning knife skills. Proper knife handling and cutting techniques are fundamental to food safety, portion control, and the final presentation and texture of dishes, all of which directly impact customer satisfaction and operational efficiency. The challenge is amplified when different chefs may have varying levels of training and experience, potentially leading to inconsistencies. The correct approach emphasizes standardized training and ongoing assessment of knife skills. This represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the foundational elements of culinary execution. By implementing a standardized curriculum that covers proper grip, stance, sharpening techniques, and specific cuts like julienne, brunoise, and dice, the establishment ensures that all culinary staff possess the necessary skills. Regular skill assessments and feedback loops, as mandated by general food safety and operational efficiency guidelines within the culinary industry, reinforce these standards. This proactive approach minimizes errors, reduces waste, and guarantees a consistent product, aligning with the implicit expectations of quality and safety in any professional kitchen. Incorrect approaches fail to meet these professional standards due to specific regulatory and ethical oversights. One incorrect approach might involve relying solely on informal on-the-job training without a structured curriculum. This is ethically problematic as it can lead to the perpetuation of unsafe or inefficient techniques, potentially compromising food safety and increasing the risk of injury. It also fails to meet the implicit ethical obligation to provide adequate training for staff to perform their duties competently. Another incorrect approach could be focusing exclusively on speed without regard for precision in cuts. This is a regulatory failure from an operational standpoint, as inconsistent cuts lead to uneven cooking times, affecting food quality and potentially leading to undercooked or overcooked food, which can be a food safety concern. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the craft and the customer's expectation of a well-prepared dish. A third incorrect approach might be neglecting regular knife sharpening. This is a critical safety failure, as dull knives require more force to cut, increasing the risk of slipping and causing serious injury. It also leads to poor quality cuts, bruising ingredients and affecting texture, which is a failure in delivering a quality product. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic approach. First, identify the core competencies required for the role, in this case, knife skills. Second, establish clear standards and best practices for these competencies, drawing from industry-accepted techniques and safety protocols. Third, implement a robust training program that imparts these standards. Fourth, establish a system for ongoing assessment and feedback to ensure adherence and continuous improvement. Finally, foster a culture of safety and quality, where attention to detail in fundamental skills like knife handling is paramount. Question 14. The evaluation methodology shows that a food preparation area has experienced a minor spill of a raw animal product onto a cutting board and a nearby stainless steel counter. The administrator on duty must decide on the immediate course of action to ensure food safety. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and compliant response? Option A. Rinse the cutting board and counter with water and continue food preparation, planning to clean and sanitize them later during a scheduled break. Option B. Discard any food that may have come into contact with the spill and continue using the cutting board and counter after a brief wipe down. Option C. Quickly wipe down the cutting board and counter with a damp cloth to remove visible residue and continue with food preparation. Option D. Immediately remove all food items from the affected area. Thoroughly clean and sanitize the cutting board and counter using approved cleaning agents and sanitizers according to manufacturer instructions and regulatory guidelines, and then resume food preparation after confirming the surfaces are clean and sanitized. Correct answer is D. Immediately remove all food items from the affected area. Thoroughly clean and sanitize the cutting board and counter using approved cleaning agents and sanitizers according to manufacturer instructions and regulatory guidelines, and then resume food preparation after confirming the surfaces are clean and sanitized. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows that a certified culinary administrator, CCA, must demonstrate a thorough understanding of sanitation procedures to ensure food safety and compliance with regulatory standards. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires immediate and correct action to prevent potential foodborne illness outbreaks, protect the establishment's reputation, and avoid regulatory penalties. The administrator must balance operational efficiency with uncompromising adherence to safety protocols. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes immediate containment and thorough remediation of a potential contamination risk. This aligns with the core principles of food safety regulations, which mandate prompt action to address any situation that could compromise food integrity. Specifically, it reflects the regulatory requirement to immediately remove potentially contaminated items from service and implement a robust cleaning and sanitizing protocol to eliminate any residual hazards. This proactive stance minimizes risk to consumers and demonstrates due diligence. An incorrect approach that involves simply rinsing the affected equipment and surfaces fails to address the critical need for proper sanitization. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the essential step of killing harmful microorganisms, leaving them viable to contaminate future food items. Ethically, it represents a disregard for consumer safety. Another incorrect approach, which involves continuing to use the equipment after a cursory wipe-down, is a severe regulatory and ethical failure. It directly exposes consumers to potential pathogens and demonstrates a gross negligence in upholding food safety standards. Finally, an approach that defers the cleaning and sanitizing until a later, less busy time is a critical regulatory failure. Food safety regulations require immediate action to mitigate risks, and delaying such procedures can lead to widespread contamination and significant health hazards. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with immediate risk assessment. Upon identifying a potential contamination, the administrator must first isolate the affected items and areas. The next step is to consult established cleaning and sanitizing protocols, ensuring the correct chemicals and procedures are used at the appropriate concentrations and contact times. This framework emphasizes a systematic, evidence-based approach to problem solving, prioritizing safety and compliance above all else. Question 15. The monitoring system demonstrates a temperature fluctuation in the walk-in refrigerator, with a logged alert indicating a rise to 45 degrees F for a brief period before returning to the set point of 40 degrees F. The administrator is reviewing the situation and considering the next steps. Option A. Immediately conduct a physical temperature check of the walk-in refrigerator and visually inspect all perishable items stored within, paying close attention to items closest to the door and those that have been in storage the longest to ensure food safety and adherence to FIFO. Option B. Proceed with restocking the refrigerator with new inventory, prioritizing the placement of older items to the front to ensure FIFO is followed. Option C. Conduct a spot check of the temperature of only one randomly selected item from the middle of the refrigerator. Option D. Assume the monitoring system corrected itself and no further action is needed, as the temperature has returned to the set point. The correct answer is A. Immediately conduct a physical temperature check of the walk-in refrigerator and visually inspect all perishable items stored within, paying close attention to items closest to the door and those that have been in storage the longest to ensure food safety and adherence to FIFO. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in food service operations, maintaining consistent and compliant food storage practices amidst potential system malfunctions. The professional challenge lies in the administrator's responsibility to ensure food safety, prevent spoilage, and adhere to regulatory standards, even when automated systems provide incomplete or potentially misleading data. This requires a proactive and investigative approach, rather than passive reliance on technology. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes immediate, hands-on verification of critical food safety parameters. By physically checking temperatures and assessing the condition of stored items, the administrator directly addresses the potential failure of the monitoring system and ensures compliance with established food safety regulations, such as those outlined by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, Food Code, which mandates proper temperature control for perishable foods. This also inherently supports the FIFO principle by prompting a review of stock rotation. An incorrect approach that solely relies on the monitoring system's data, despite a flagged anomaly, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the potential health risks associated with improperly stored food. This could lead to the distribution of unsafe food, violating public health mandates and potentially causing foodborne illness. Furthermore, ignoring a system alert suggests a failure to implement robust quality control procedures. Another incorrect approach that involves only checking the temperature of a single item, without considering the broader storage environment or the FIFO principle, is insufficient. While temperature is crucial, it doesn't address potential cross-contamination issues or the risk of older stock expiring or degrading before newer stock. This approach fails to encompass the holistic requirements of proper food storage as mandated by food safety guidelines. A third incorrect approach that focuses on reorganizing stock without verifying temperatures or assessing the condition of the food is also professionally unacceptable. While FIFO is important, it should be applied to food that is safe and within its appropriate temperature range. Prioritizing organization over safety and quality control is a direct violation of food safety principles and regulatory expectations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a tiered response. 1. Acknowledge and investigate any system alerts immediately. 2. Prioritize physical verification of critical parameters, temperature, visual inspection for all affected storage areas. 3. Assess the condition and age of food items to ensure FIFO is being followed and to identify any items nearing expiration or showing signs of spoilage. 4. Take corrective action based on physical findings, which may include adjusting temperatures, discarding unsafe food, or reorganizing stock according to FIFO. 5. Document all findings, actions taken, and any system malfunctions for future reference and continuous improvement. Question 16. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a new pastry chef has been hired to standardize a signature dessert that has historically been inconsistent in quality. The chef has extensive experience, but lacks formal training in the specific techniques used for the establishment's signature pastry cream and accompanying fruit coulis. The chef proposes to implement their own established methods for preparing these components, believing their personal experience will ensure superior results. What is the most appropriate course of action for the culinary administrator to ensure consistency, quality, and adherence to regulatory standards? Option A. The administrator should provide the new chef with a generic recipe for pastry cream and coulis from a widely available culinary textbook and expect them to adapt it to the establishment's needs without further guidance or testing. Option B. The administrator should allow the new chef to immediately implement their preferred methods for the pastry cream and coulis, trusting their extensive experience to deliver the desired quality and consistency. Option C. The administrator should instruct the new chef to focus solely on the visual presentation of the dessert, as the taste and texture of the pastry cream and coulis are subjective and less critical to customer satisfaction. Option D. The administrator should require the new chef to meticulously document their proposed methods for the pastry cream and coulis, including ingredient ratios, preparation steps, cooking temperatures, and cooling procedures, and then conduct controlled test batches under the administrator's supervision to verify consistency and safety before full implementation. The correct answer is D. The administrator should require the new chef to meticulously document their proposed methods for the pastry cream and coulis, including ingredient ratios, preparation steps, cooking temperatures, and cooling procedures, and then conduct controlled test batches under the administrator's supervision to verify consistency and safety before full implementation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in a culinary setting where a new pastry chef is tasked with standardizing a signature dessert. The challenge lies in balancing the chef's personal experience and intuition with the need for consistent, high-quality output that meets established standards and regulatory expectations for food safety and product integrity. The risk of inconsistency can impact customer satisfaction, brand reputation, and potentially lead to food safety issues if critical steps are overlooked. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic process of deconstructing the existing recipe, identifying critical control points in the baking and pastry preparation, and then meticulously documenting and testing each step. This aligns with best professional practices in culinary administration by prioritizing consistency, safety, and replicability. By focusing on the fundamental principles of dough and batter preparation, pastry cream, custards, and sauces, the chef ensures that the core elements of the dessert are understood and controlled. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of errors and ensures that the final product is reliably delicious and safe, adhering to the implicit standards of a certified culinary administrator. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves relying solely on the new chef's personal experience and intuition, without rigorous testing or documentation. This poses a significant regulatory and ethical risk. From a regulatory standpoint, it bypasses the established food safety protocols and quality control measures that are essential for consistent product delivery. Ethically, it fails to uphold the responsibility of a culinary administrator to ensure that all products meet a defined standard, potentially leading to customer dissatisfaction and damage to the establishment's reputation. Another incorrect approach is to make significant, unverified changes to the recipe based on the chef's subjective preferences, without understanding the impact on the chemical and physical reactions occurring during baking and preparation. This can lead to unpredictable results, compromising the texture, flavor, and stability of the pastry cream, custards, or sauces. This approach disregards the scientific principles of baking and the established best practices for ingredient interactions, increasing the risk of product failure and potential food safety hazards if, for example, a custard is not cooked to a safe internal temperature due to altered ingredient ratios or cooking times. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize speed and efficiency over accuracy and adherence to established techniques. This can lead to shortcuts in critical steps such as proper dough resting, accurate ingredient measurement, or thorough cooking of custards and pastry creams. Such an approach directly violates food safety regulations by increasing the risk of undercooked ingredients or improper handling, which can foster bacterial growth. It also undermines the quality and consistency expected of a professional culinary product. Professional reasoning. Professionals in culinary administration must adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes a systematic, evidence-based approach. This involves understanding the underlying principles of the culinary techniques being employed, adhering to established food safety regulations, and implementing robust quality control measures. When faced with standardizing a recipe or introducing new techniques, the process should involve 1. Thorough understanding of the existing recipe and its critical steps. 2. Identifying and controlling critical control points for food safety and quality. 3. Meticulous documentation and testing of all modifications. And 4. Ensuring that the final product is consistently replicable and meets all regulatory and quality standards. This structured approach ensures both professional excellence and regulatory compliance. Question 17. Investigation of a newly opened restaurant's operational procedures reveals a potential conflict between the desire to minimize waste and the strict requirements of local food safety regulations regarding temperature control for perishable goods. The certified culinary administrator must determine the most appropriate course of action to ensure compliance. Option A. Delegate the responsibility for monitoring food temperatures entirely to the kitchen staff, assuming they are fully aware of all applicable regulations and best practices without formal verification or ongoing training. Option B. Implement a rigorous training program for all staff on proper food storage temperatures, establish clear protocols for monitoring and recording temperatures, and conduct regular internal audits to ensure adherence to both regulatory standards and waste reduction goals. Option C. Rely on the general knowledge of food safety practices that have been in place for years, without specifically reviewing current local, state, and federal temperature control mandates. Option D. Prioritize immediate waste reduction by slightly extending the time perishable items can remain at room temperature before refrigeration, assuming minor deviations will not be noticed by inspectors. Correct answer is B. Implement a rigorous training program for all staff on proper food storage temperatures, establish clear protocols for monitoring and recording temperatures, and conduct regular internal audits to ensure adherence to both regulatory standards and waste reduction goals. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for culinary administrators, balancing operational efficiency with strict adherence to food safety regulation. The administrator must interpret and apply complex, often overlapping, local, state, and federal guidelines to ensure the safety of food served to the public. The challenge lies in the potential for misinterpretation, the need for continuous training, and the consequences of non-compliance, which can range from minor citations to severe public health crises and business closure. The correct approach involves a proactive and systematic review of all applicable food safety regulations, followed by the implementation of robust internal policies and training programs. This demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing public health and safety, which is the fundamental ethical and legal obligation of any food service establishment. It ensures that all staff members are aware of their responsibilities and equipped to maintain the highest standards of hygiene and food handling, thereby minimizing the risk of foodborne illness and regulatory violations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost-saving measures without considering regulatory implications is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to the use of substandard equipment or ingredients, or insufficient staffing for proper sanitation, directly violating food safety laws designed to prevent contamination and spoilage. Another incorrect approach that relies on outdated or incomplete knowledge of regulations is equally problematic. Food safety laws are dynamic and subject to change. Failure to stay current can result in unintentional noncompliance, putting patrons at risk and exposing the establishment to penalties. Lastly, an approach that delegates all food safety responsibilities to junior staff without adequate oversight or training is a failure of leadership and a violation of the administrator's duty to ensure compliance. Professionals should approach such situations by establishing a clear understanding of all relevant regulatory bodies, e.g., FDA, USDA, state health departments, local ordinances, and their specific requirements. This involves regular review of official guidance documents, participation in industry training, and fostering a culture of food safety within the organization. When faced with operational pressures, the decision-making process must always prioritize regulatory compliance and public health above all else. This involves risk assessment, where potential violations are identified and mitigated through policy, training, and resource allocation. Question 18. What factors determine the most effective strategy for a certified culinary administrator to implement comprehensive allergen awareness and control within a busy restaurant environment, ensuring both customer safety and operational efficiency? Option A. The availability of cleaning supplies and the frequency of general kitchen sanitation. Option B. The establishment's documented allergen control plan, staff training protocols, and clear customer communication procedures. Option C. The speed at which kitchen staff can prepare dishes, with allergen information provided only upon direct request. Option D. The perceived likelihood of a customer having an allergy based on general demographics. The correct answer is B. The establishment's documented allergen control plan, staff training protocols, and clear customer communication procedures. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the Certified Culinary Administrator, CCA, to balance efficient kitchen operations with the critical mandate of protecting customer health from severe allergic reactions. The challenge lies in implementing robust allergen control measures without unduly disrupting service flow or creating an overly burdensome environment for staff. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all necessary steps are taken to prevent cross-contact and to communicate effectively with customers, while also maintaining operational efficiency. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core responsibilities of allergen awareness as outlined by food safety regulations and ethical obligations. It prioritizes accurate identification of allergens, meticulous prevention of cross-contact through dedicated procedures and training, and transparent communication with customers. This comprehensive strategy minimizes risk, builds customer trust, and aligns with the CCA's duty of care. Regulatory compliance is achieved by adhering to established food safety standards that mandate allergen management. An incorrect approach that relies solely on staff memory for allergen information is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It neglects the need for documented procedures and consistent training, increasing the likelihood of errors and cross-contact. Ethically, it places an undue burden on individual staff members and fails to provide a systemic safeguard for customer safety. Another incorrect approach that involves only informing customers when specifically asked about allergens is a failure to proactively fulfill the duty to inform. Regulations often require businesses to make allergen information readily available, and a passive approach can lead to customers unknowingly consuming allergens, resulting in severe health consequences and potential legal liability. A third incorrect approach that focuses solely on cleaning surfaces without addressing ingredient sourcing and preparation methods overlooks critical points of cross-contact. Allergen contamination can occur at multiple stages, from receiving ingredients to final plating, and a narrow focus on cleaning is insufficient to guarantee safety. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific allergens relevant to their establishment's menu. This should be followed by developing clear, documented procedures for ingredient sourcing, storage, preparation, and service, with a strong emphasis on preventing cross-contact. Regular, comprehensive staff training on these procedures and on recognizing and responding to customer allergy needs is essential. Finally, establishing clear channels for customer communication regarding allergens, including readily accessible information and trained staff to answer questions, forms the final layer of protection. This systematic approach ensures both compliance and the highest standard of customer safety. Question 19. When evaluating the readiness of a beef tenderloin steak for service, which approach best ensures both optimal texture and adherence to food safety regulations for a certified culinary administrator? Option A. Inserting a calibrated digital instant read thermometer into the thickest part of the steak, away from bone or fat, to confirm the internal temperature. Option B. Visually inspecting the surface of the steak for a brown crust and judging doneness by the slight springiness when the center is pressed. Option C. Probing the steak with a clean skewer and observing the color of the juices that run out, alongside a gentle press to gauge firmness. Option D. Relying on the elapsed cooking time specified in a standard recipe for medium-rare doneness, without further checks. The correct answer is C. Probing the steak with a clean skewer and observing the color of the juices that run out, alongside a gentle press to gauge firmness. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the Certified Culinary Administrator, CCA, is responsible for ensuring that meat dishes served meet specific quality and safety standards, which directly impacts customer satisfaction and the establishment's reputation. Achieving the desired doneness for various meat cuts requires a nuanced understanding of both the meat's characteristics and appropriate cooking techniques, all while adhering to food safety regulations. The pressure to deliver consistent results under potentially time-sensitive conditions adds to the complexity. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and informed method for assessing meat doneness. This involves utilizing multiple sensory cues, visual, tactile, and, crucially, employing a calibrated thermometer to verify internal temperature against established food safety guidelines. This multifaceted approach minimizes the risk of undercooking, which can lead to foodborne illness, and overcooking, which compromises texture and flavor. Adherence to these temperature guidelines is a fundamental regulatory and ethical obligation for any food service professional, ensuring public health and safety. An incorrect approach that relies solely on visual cues or touch is professionally unacceptable. Visually, the color of meat can be misleading, especially with marinades or certain cooking methods. Tactile assessment, while useful for experienced chefs, is subjective and prone to error, particularly with less common cuts or variations in fat content. Relying on these methods alone fails to meet the regulatory requirement for ensuring food is cooked to a safe internal temperature, thereby creating a significant food safety risk and violating ethical responsibilities to patrons. Another incorrect approach might involve using an uncalibrated thermometer. This introduces a critical point of failure, as inaccurate temperature readings can lead to both undercooking safety risk and overcooking quality compromise, failing to uphold the professional standard of precision and care. Professionals should approach meat cookery by first understanding the specific cut of meat and its fat content, as this dictates the optimal cooking method. For example, tougher cuts benefit from slow, moist heat, while tender cuts are best suited for quick, dry heat. For cooking, it is essential to ensure all temperature measuring devices are calibrated. During cooking, regular monitoring of internal temperature with a calibrated thermometer is paramount. This should be supplemented by visual and tactile checks, but the thermometer reading should be the definitive indicator of doneness and safety. This systematic process, grounded in scientific principles and regulatory compliance, ensures both safety and quality. Question 20. The performance metrics show a consistent decline in the profitability of a signature appetizer due to fluctuating ingredient costs for a key component. The standard recipe is well established with precise yield calculations and costings. The supplier has informed you that the primary ingredient will be unavailable for an extended period, and a similar but slightly different alternative is being offered. What is the most appropriate administrative approach to address this situation while maintaining the integrity of the standardized recipe and its financial projections? Option A. Assume the alternative ingredient will perform identically to the original and continue using the existing recipe and costings without any modifications. Option B. Immediately test the alternative ingredient in the recipe. Document any necessary adjustments to cooking methods or times. Recalculate the yield and cost based on the new ingredient and update the standardized recipe accordingly. Option C. Remove the appetizer from the menu entirely until the original ingredient becomes available again. Option D. Make the substitution without any formal testing or documentation and instruct the kitchen staff to do their best to adapt. The correct answer is B. Immediately test the alternative ingredient in the recipe, document any necessary adjustments to cooking methods or times, recalculate the yield and cost based on the new ingredient, and update the standardized recipe accordingly. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for consistent product quality and cost control with the practical realities of ingredient availability and potential supply chain disruptions. A certified culinary administrator, CCA, must ensure that recipe standardization, yield calculations, and costing remain accurate and reliable, even when faced with external pressures. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes maintaining the integrity of the standardized recipe and its associated costings. By documenting and approving any ingredient substitution, and then recalculating yield and cost, the administrator ensures that the final product remains consistent in quality and that financial projections are accurate. This adherence to established procedures is crucial for maintaining operational efficiency, meeting customer expectations, and complying with any internal or external quality assurance guidelines that a CCA would be expected to uphold. It demonstrates a commitment to data integrity and controlled processes, which are fundamental to professional culinary administration. An incorrect approach that involves making substitutions without proper documentation or recalculation fails to uphold the principles of standardized recipes. This can lead to inconsistencies in flavor, texture, and appearance, negatively impacting customer satisfaction and brand reputation. Ethically, it can be considered a failure to deliver the promised product. From a regulatory perspective, if the establishment operates under specific food safety or quality certifications, such deviations could lead to non-compliance. Furthermore, it undermines the accuracy of recipe costing, potentially leading to financial losses or inaccurate pricing strategies. Another incorrect approach, that of simply assuming the new ingredient will perform identically without verification, ignores the fundamental principles of recipe development and yield calculation. Different brands or types of ingredients, even if seemingly similar, can have varying moisture content, fat levels, or other properties that significantly affect cooking times, absorption rates, and ultimately, the final yield. This oversight can lead to inaccurate costings and inconsistent product quality, jeopardizing both financial stability and customer trust. A third incorrect approach, that of discontinuing the dish altogether due to a minor ingredient issue, is an overreaction that fails to leverage the administrator's expertise in recipe adaptation and problem solving. A CCA's role includes finding solutions to maintain menu offerings and profitability. Abandoning a dish without exploring viable substitutions or adjustments demonstrates a lack of resourcefulness and a failure to optimize operational processes. This can lead to unnecessary menu simplification and potential loss of revenue. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic approach. First, assess the impact of the ingredient unavailability on the recipe's core characteristics. Second, research and identify potential substitutions that are functionally and sensorially similar. Third, conduct small-scale testing to verify the substitution's performance and adjust cooking methods or times as needed. Fourth, update the standardized recipe with the approved substitution, including revised yield calculations and costings. Finally, communicate any changes to relevant staff and ensure consistent implementation.